This video is sponsored by Squarespace. For 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com/mattday. I've primarily always been a black and white photographer. It's just what has always clicked with me the most. It's how I typically see things. But as I've mentioned here on the channel in recent months, I've been trying to shoot more color, specifically to not use black and white as a crutch, and just to try and push myself and learn a little bit more about what it is I'm shooting and how I typically like to shoot. So this book, Joel Meyerowitz, A Question of Color, was a really timely purchase for me. I've had it for a couple of months now, and it's really made me think about all of this so much more. He talks in the book about going in, buying his camera, buying some film, and the clerk at the store asking him, do you want color or black and white? But he talks about how this question kind of stuck with him, and he would sort of do these exercises where he would always have two cameras with him, one loaded with black and white, one with color, and anytime he had the opportunity to, he would shoot the same thing with each camera. He talked about the pros and cons of each, especially at that time when he started with photography decades ago, the cost of color and black and white, and how you would print the color versus printing the black and white, or even projecting the color slides versus, not being able to do that with black and white film. It was a really interesting idea of him being able to do this just for his own exercise. He wasn't trying to make a point with this or share the work in this way. It was really more just about learning the craft. And to see some of these photos side by side, seeing the exact same subject, both in color and black and white, it's clear how much of a difference it really makes in the end result. Black and white photography for me has always just been the default. For whatever reason, it feels like it's just a cleaner way of photographing things. There's less distraction, less, colors clashing with each other. It doesn't feel as messy to just shoot it in black and white. I'm able to just focus solely on the composition and the light and the different values of light. But when I see color photography done right, there is something about it that just strikes a different chord with me. When the color adds to the photo and it doesn't distract, that's when I think I really want to do that. I want to get better at shooting color. When you have all these different colors and they're clashing, it doesn't just cooperate as easily. And when I see something that I want to shoot, typically the color is the last thing that I'm paying attention to when I want to shoot it. It's not the first thing that really draws me in. Paying attention to the light and the composition, and just when everything in the frame kind of finds its rightful place where everything just sits perfectly, that's typically what I'm drawn to, and black and white I find is just kind of perfect for that. It's just the light that you're working with, and it's this sort of visual balance that you're getting working only with darkness and light and how the two interact with one another. Or it's specifically the moment where color is completely stripped away, there's no distraction other than that specific moment that's just suspended in time. All you have is the light and this sort of gesture of life as it's moving. But when color is done right, there is just something completely different that captivates me about it. The way color grabs a hold of our senses, and it's like it embeds itself into the memory itself. When you see a color photo, it's like there's this transportive quality to it where it puts you right back in the moment, and you're not just seeing the photo, you're getting a sense of the warmth and the temperature and the whole atmosphere and how it particularly felt when you shot the photo. It's always been really hard for me to put into words, but when a color photo stands out to me, it feels much more like I'm a participant in the photo, like it really transports me there. It almost feels like more of an experience, like the mood and the atmosphere translates through color in a totally different way. With black and white, it feels much more like observational. Even when it's moments of my own life, it feels a bit more like I'm looking at my life in the photo, like this sort of out-of-body type of documentation. When I describe black and white photography that way, on paper, it feels like that's obviously the lesser form of photography. Like I'm not capturing all of the different senses and all of the moment or the memory, but for whatever reason, it's still just what I always default to. It's always been what makes the most sense to me. It's what feels natural without having to think about it. I don't really have to ask myself that question. I just default to black and white. But despite that, I've enjoyed this experiment and exercise of trying to work with color. But I think having the discipline, focusing on something, even if it's just for a day, doesn't have to be anything long, but just going out, eliminating the option, just making that choice before you go out to make photos, it's really helped me lead with intentionality on how I want to shoot things and what it is that I'm looking for. Because if I have all of the options up for myself and I can make that decision just on the fly, you get that sort of option paralysis where you don't really know which way to go. Having that specific, kind of guiding choice that you make, I think in the end, it's going to lead to better photos because you have a specific intention in mind. This book has just been really inspiring in a lot of ways. I've reread it a couple of times, seeing the work itself, the black and white and the color side by side, that does obviously go a long way. But Joel Meyerowitz, his work aside, which I do enjoy, just hearing him talk about photography and sharing his experience and his knowledge and just his philosophy on photography. I've always loved listening to him speak, so Joel Meyerowitz, A Question of Color. If this sort of thing is of interest to you, if you ask yourself this question or if you have a hard time deciding, I would highly encourage you pick this book up. This is just something that's been on my mind a lot lately, so I wanted to share it with all of you. And I'd also like to share a little bit about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. For over 10 years now, my website, mattdayphoto.com, it's been solely made and ran with Squarespace because it is the best all-in-one place to build a website. Nowadays, I think it's more important than ever to have a place for your work to live where it's not being shuffled in the middle of different algorithms all over social media. Giving your place a specific place to live where you can present it exactly how you want, I think it's more important now than ever, and it's also easier now than ever. Being able to build your own website, not having to have any experience with web design and coding and all of the things that come along with it, all of the different templates you have to choose from, with everything being fully customizable, you can actually present your work the way it's meant to be presented. On top of that, selling prints, zines, even books. Right now, my latest book is up for sale. That's also on my website. It's more easy now than ever to run your business and sell things, or in my opinion, just self-publishing, a big part of my photography. So if you want to try Squarespace out for yourself and do all of the things I've mentioned, you can do that at squarespace.com, but when you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/mattday, and that'll save you 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. I'm really curious to hear all of your thoughts on A Question of Color and how you ask yourself this question, how you come to those decisions. Everybody kind of has their own philosophy when it comes to color versus black and white, so we can keep the conversation going in the comments down below. But that's all for today. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.